So now that we have a foundation on different parts of speech, so there are different kinds of sentences. The first one being simple sentence. You must have heard the word clause before, but what exactly is a clause? Clause is a group of words which contain a subject and a verb and express or a unit of meaning. It's a very basic fundamental unit of a sentence, and you should know how to combine different clauses so that you can make proper sentences. So the first one would be your simple sentence. Now, the first one would be your simple sentences. Now, what are simple sentences? Simple sentences are sentences where there is one independent clause, direct and clear, nothing else. Like, the sun rises, she loves to read. One unit of idea. She loves to read. She is your subject, loves is your verb, and then you have an object, right? So, very simple, one basic idea. That is your simple sentence. Now, what are compound sentences? Compound sentences are two independent clauses joined by a conjunction. Remember when we were doing conjunctions, fanboys, where each letter stands for a conjunction. Independent clauses are group of words which makes complete sense in themselves. They are not dependent on each other. For example, she likes coffee, he prefers tea. Both of these are two independent clauses and they are not dependent on each other. They are not related to each other in any way. So when we are trying to join these two sentences, we will be using coordinating conjunctions. Now these coordinating conjunctions are fanboys. To jog your memory about conjunctions, kindly refer to the conjunctions topic. More details on conjunctions to be found in module number 3. Next is complex sentences. Now, complex sentences are when one independent clause and one dependent clause, they are joined together. So, these are called complex sentences. Although it was late, she continued working. Although it was late, she continued working. Here, she continued working is an independent clause because it can stand on its own. It has a subject, it has a verb. However, although it was late is dependent on she continued working. Also, it starts with a conjunction. So, a tip for you would be if something starts with a conjunction, most of the time it's the dependent clause. Then we have compound complex sentences. We can find at least two independent and one dependent clause. Now, when do we use such compound complex sentences? When we want to talk about something in depth or in detail. Like, take a look at this example. Remember, it has at least two independent and one dependent clause. Although it was raining, we decided to go hiking and we ended up having a great time. Now, when we say we decided to go hiking, this part of the sentence is absolutely independent. It can stand on its own as a sentence. So this is an independent clause. We ended up having a great time. Again, it can stand as an independent sentence. So this is also an independent clause. And see how we are joining this independent clause. We decided to go hiking and we ended up having a great time with a coordinating conjunction, which is used to join two independent clauses. So, which is the dependent clause here? It is although it was rain. Remember, whenever something starts with a conjunction, it's mostly an independent clause. So here, according to our rule, compound complex sentence will have at least two independent clause, which we have, and one dependent. Quick tip, when making longer sentences, always try to start with the subject itself rather than starting with something else. Like, I went to the park yesterday is much easier to construct rather than yesterday I went to the park. Remember the simple structure of sentences: subject, verb, and object. Second tip would be try to use active voice as much as possible. Active voice would be when the subject is doing something rather than something being done. Now let us discuss few of the common sentence pitfalls or mistakes. The first one would be sentence fragments. That is, when you start a sentence and you miss certain parts of it. Either the subject goes missing, or the verb goes missing, or it's not a complete thought. This mostly happens when people start writing in continuous prose, when they have to write a paragraph, or when they are in a conversation and they have so much details to give. So be very mindful when you're constructing sentences. Make sure that you stick to this formula of subject, verb, and object. Like the example given here, running down the street, she was running down the street. Next would be run-on sentences. This is a very common mistake that children they commit during their examinations or when they're writing in their notebooks, that the sentences are either too long or they do not have proper punctuations. Punctuations can make a lot of difference. Punctuation provides pauses to your writing or to your speech, which is important to impart clarity to your reader or to your listener. Look at this example. He went to the store, he bought milk, he came back home. Without any punctuation, it sounds odd. There are no pauses. Also, it lacks clarity. However, the correct way would be, he went to the store, full stop. He bought milk and came back. Just a single full stop adds that much needed pause. Otherwise, it's very difficult to have meaningful conversation if you do not know when to pause and at what time. Next would be repetitive words, where you're using same words in consecutive lines or in the same paragraph. Now, there are two ways in which you can avoid this. First would be try to use pronouns as much as possible. Second would be to elevate your vocabulary. Look at the example I have mentioned here. The cat chased the mouse. The cat waited outside the mouse hole. We can improve this sentence by either changing the wordings, however keeping the meaning intact, or by using pronouns. So the cat chased the mouse, it waited outside the mouse hole. That could be one way of doing it. Or the cat chased the mouse, then waited patiently outside the hole. So quick recap, try to stick to the formula of making correct sentences, which is subject plus verb plus object. Do not try to skip any part. Second one would be to avoid run-on lines, which can be achieved if you are mindful about your punctuations. Finally, try not to use repetitive words. You can do that by either using pronouns or elevating your vocabulary and using different words. As mentioned before, punctuations are very important. Imagine having a conversation with someone and not pausing. That will just make the conversation so much difficult because it will lack clarity and it will be exceedingly difficult for your listener to understand what you are talking about. Similarly, when you're writing something and you do not feel the necessity to punctuate, it will also come off as a rambling and it will be very difficult for your readers to understand what's going on. So just as verbal communication, when we talk, we pause. So in written communication, punctuations do the same job. They give you the pauses. They provide the necessary pauses which is required for clarity. So let's have a look at few of the important ones. First would be your period or your full stop which ends a sentence. Now, when to use it? Once a complete thought is done, you can put a full stop. She loves music. He likes to eat. She loves dance. Next is comma. That is to pause or separate ideas or things in a list. Like, I went to the shop and I got myself some apples, comma banana, comma bread, comma tomatoes, and some milk. Another example would be, she sings, comma, dances, and writes really well. Next is a question mark. Whenever we are asking a question, we'll put a question mark. Do you know him? What is his name? Exclamation point adds energy, or every time there's an excess of emotion, it could be sad, it could be happy, it could be excitement, you put an exclamation. I am so thrilled, exclamation. Bravo, our team won. Alas, he is no more, exclamation. Why exclamation? Because again, you're being sad, there is an excess of emotion. Now let's come to apostrophe. Apostrophe is that little comma that you put at the top that is used to show possession or contraction. Contraction is a shortening, like don't, like DON. apostrophe T. It is also used as possession to show something belongs to someone. Sarah's book. Sarah apostrophe S. Sarah's book. Mother's love. Father's care. Apostrophe. Quotation marks, direct speech. Whenever you're talking about something or whenever there's a direct speech involved, generally we use it when we're writing a story and we want to give our character some dialogue. You can use direct quotes. I love reading, she said. I love dancing, she said. The dialogue itself, whatever has been quoted by the person, must be inside the quotation mark. The next one is colon, that is two dots, one above the other. Introduces something, explains something further. She needs three things. Now, what are these three things? You will put a colon, a pen, comma, a notebook, comma, and a charger. Now, why did we use commas here? Because we are segregating things in a list. And why use a colon? Because it is introducing something. It can be an idea also, or it's also an explanation for something. Next is a semicolon, very commonly misused. Semicolon is used to connect two clauses which are kind of related to each other. Now, there is a very, very good way to understand if you can use a semicolon or not. Ask yourself, can you replace the semicolon with a full stop? And those two sentences would still make sense. If that's the case, then you can use a semicolon. For example, I wanted to go out, however, it started raining. Now, if we replace this semicolon with a full stop, it'll still make sense. Both these sentences would make sense and they will stand on its own. I wanted to go out, full stop. However, it started raining, full stop. So it makes sense. So that means whenever you want to join two sentences which can stand on its own, use a semicolon. Finally, we have dash and we have parenthesis. Dash is used for a big pause. Okay. And also to emphasize, she has one favorite thing, which is chocolate. So you're trying to emphasize something. And what about parenthesis? Adds extra info, but softly, like in a bracket. The party, which was amazing, ended late. So you should be able to use a bracket whenever you want to give extra information. All right, but softly. Kindly find more examples in the resource section.